What is duty cycle? Duty cycle is arguably the secret sauce, the superpower that VESC grants you. It is the tool that teaches you how you can push your board and gives you the confidence to truly ride it to its max. But what is it? To the experts in the space, please do not cringe when I oversimplify what duty cycle is. Give me mercy. Inside of your board, the motor is doing two things. It is both accelerating us and keeping us balanced. The way that we accelerate is by leaning in on the nose, requesting current to propel us forwards. Balancing itself also requires current, but the amount of current that we have is scarce. So the controller is having to do a balancing act between accelerating and balancing the board. So as you accelerate faster and faster, you will find a point where there is no more current to adequately supply both acceleration and balancing. You might make the assumption that the board will just stop you from accelerating, right? It's smart enough. This is a complex device. It'll stop me from pushing its limits, right? Wrong. That does not reflect reality at all. By leaning into the nose, you ask for more current, and the motor has no way to refuse your command. So it must pull current from somewhere else, the balancing. So as you reach this threshold, you'll end up telling the motor to prioritize acceleration over balancing. But now nothing is working for you to keep you upright. You're effectively riding a seesaw and free fall. And the weight of your acceleration now pushes the nose into the ground and you have a nosedive. This isn't the board doing anything wrong. It is doing exactly what you told it to do. For the first few years of the sport, you would have no idea when you would meet this threshold. You would just sort of have to know when you'd be reaching this point off of vibes. But once VESC stepped in, we were finally given accurate tools to measure when this would happen. This is duty cycle. Duty cycle measures how much effort the motor is working to both accelerate and balance you at the same time. And that moment of conflict between acceleration and balancing is about 95% on our scale. Our apps will show us the exact measurement of work that our board is doing in any given time. But having to look down at your phone while you're riding to see this measurement happening in real time is not a safe way to know when you're going to nosedive. So we've built a few safety measures to be able to intuitively warn you when you're reaching this threshold. Haptic buzz and pushback are two warning systems that will happen way before 95%. At 80% duty cycle, you'll feel a slight buzz and the nose raising underneath of your feet. This gives you plenty of warning before ever coming close to that nosedive so that you can educatively chase speeds without having to risk a random nosedive. Is educatively a word? I don't think so. Both of these warning systems, haptic buzz and pushback, are very configurable. You can set these warning systems to go off at any percentage of duty cycle. You can set its strength, its speed, its sound. You can even completely turn them off if you want to. It's not recommended to do that unless you're deeply familiar with the speeds at which you can push your board. Some people, like pro racers, like doing this, taking away things like pushback, because it does require a little bit of current to be able to give these warning systems. And that little bit of current could be the difference between winning and losing a race. And if you know your board well enough, you'll know when this is happening. But if you just want to casually cruise around and not have to worry about that, keep these on. Duty cycle and other important alerts are spread across both pushback alerts and haptic feedback. Under pushback alerts, the first grouping holds our duty cycle warning. Before I get too deep into this, know that most of these settings are completely normal for most general riders' needs. You shouldn't really need to change any of this too much. The first grouping will allow you to set what percentage duty cycle alerts start at and how strong of a pushback will occur. Down below, you'll have your high voltage and low voltage pushbacks. These are additional alerts to inform you when you're overcharging your battery on an intensive regen or when you're low on battery. The next tab is haptic feedback. Again, most of this is perfectly fine at its default settings. But within this first grouping, the first two are the frequency and the strength of that 80% duty cycle haptic feedback. Its default preset is pretty much identical to what a future motion board would have, but you can change this to change the tone of the sound. The second two relate to the high and low voltage alerts that are configured in the previous tab. These are set to a slightly different tone than the duty cycles alert so that you can distinguish the two from one another. The rest of the tabs in here are fine to not change, but they can be fine-tuned to your preferences. I would check out Nico Ailman's video on haptic feedback, and he goes a lot more in depth about what each value does. There's a lot more complexity and depth to what these do than what I just explained. So I'll let him take over on that side because they wrote all of this, not me. Okay, so right before we move on, I need to make a correction. When I said current in my explanation of duty cycle, I really meant effort or resources rather than the actual raw electrical current or amps. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that duty cycle is very different from torque headroom. Duty cycle is mainly a function of speed. You'll only hit duty cycle limits near the top speed of a board, whereas you can over torque a board also at low speed, especially if it's a weak battery or controller. This is why you can hit duty cycle limits even when the current is basically zero, like if you're going fast enough downhill. There's one way where current will affect duty cycle though, when high currents cause battery voltage to sag. This is why you can hit higher top speeds when you're coasting versus when you're accelerating. If that didn't make sense, listen to it one more time, and if it doesn't make sense after that, just keep on moving on. That's just a better detailed description of what's going on. So I hope that makes sense.